one. Hello, Anthony Hartwig here with another Hot Corner edition. This week's special guest is the Missouri Assistant Coach, Sara Michalowski-Marino. Sara, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, we're very excited to have you. Last full season, you were named NFCA Assistant Coach of the Year. We'll get along with all that and then what you're doing at Missouri. But first, I want to talk about your high school experience because YSN, we cover so much high school sports, and that's what our passion is. So, what was so special to you about your high school experience and the high school softball that you played?
I grew up in a big city in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Catholic school, private school. So sports weren't really a huge deal at my high school, but for us, we were, I think, one of the first teams to ever win a playoff game. So my experience was awesome. Be able to be a female athlete and be put in the paper and front page. I think it was big at my time for female athletes in general, but just, the experience you have in high school is something, you can never repeat again. You have one chance and, you got to make the best of your experience.
What were some of your favorite memories with the high school team and that level of softball?
I think just the time with your friends, because obviously when you play at a competitive level, like travel ball, all of that, it's, the focus is softball. And in high school, you also have the friends that you go to class with and all those kinds of things. So I think the bus rides and the locker room and all of that, obviously winning ball games is always exciting, but I think the experience overall of being with your friends and your teammates is the best part of the experience.
You went on to play at Hofstra. What was that recruiting process like? And going through it, you were in a different recruiting age where you could recruit so early back then. What was your recruiting process like and what made you choose Hofstra?
So when I was going through the process, it actually was the July 1st of your junior year that you could have contact. And for me, I grew up in a big family. I have 2 older brothers, 2 younger sisters. I was the first in my family, including my parents, to go to college. So we kind of went into it blind. We had no idea what we were doing. And back then it just wasn't as aggressive when I played, but I went on one other visit before Hofstra, and I was like, oh, I like the school. But when I went to Hofstra, it was what they were all about. It was, we want to win championships. We're going to mold you and make you a better person. We're going to make you the best player you can be. And obviously Coach Anderson was there. And then we also had Coach Edwards, Hall of Fame. He was tremendous. And what they had to offer, the family atmosphere, it was close enough for my family to come watch me. And I just wanted to win ball games and play at the highest level I could play.
You played for Coach Anderson, then you helped her on that staff at Hofstra. Now you move with her from Missouri. Obviously, such an impactful person in your life. What is it about Coach Anderson that really impacted you and made you want to keep along with her journey?
Well, she's always held me to a high standard, and she's not going to let me fall through the cracks or let me get away with things that I'm better than. So for me, it's just, I know she has my best interests at heart and she wants me to succeed, and she's going to hold me to a high standard to make sure I get there. You go through these different seasons of life. So going from a high schooler to a college kid, and now then even working at Hofstra in my mid-20s, it was a different phase of my life. And now she supports me. I'm married. I have a 20-month-old son, and she's kind of been there through it all and supported me and made sure I'm going to be okay. So I think it just speaks volumes as to who she is, and we've grown together and she's helped me grow. And I just respect her a ton, and have just so much love for her.
She moves to an SEC job. She gets the job at Missouri. You're the first hire she makes. What did that kind of mean to you, that you were the first person that she had the thought of and the first person that she called to come on board?
Obviously, I was shocked. At the time, I remember my husband now was my fiance, and I was like, what do you think about moving to Missouri? It was kind of a shock, but I was flattered. And at the same time, it just speaks volumes as to what our culture has been at Hofstra and carried over to Mizzou is all about family. And we want people on board that are going to be loyal and trustworthy. And I think that's part of who we are. And as a staff, you have to have that trust and loyalty. And maybe at the time I don't know, I was young, but I was ready, and she knew I was going to grow. And I just respect it so much.
What was that response when you asked you want to move to Missouri? And
I
now
mean,
obviously,
yeah, I mean, my husband was a Division II softball coach at Lemoyne up in Syracuse, New York. And he was like, you know what, let's do it. So for him to give up everything for me was, I mean, we weren't even married yet and we could have done long distance, but he was like, this is your time. And, obviously I love the guy to death, but I just can't thank him enough.
and now Missouri is home for you. And you, like I said at the top, you were named the assistant coach of the year in the last full season we saw in 2019. What did that honor mean to you?
Well, one, I was again shocked. I mean, a lot of these good things that happen, you just don't expect because you're just being you and trying to, make yourself better, make the team better. But, coach went through some difficult times with her father passing and she had some surgeries and, and I was just doing my job, what I thought was my job, and I was going to still hold the team to the high standard and all of that. So for coach to notice what I was doing when she wasn't here, I mean, it was awesome. It was such an honor.
Now, you go into this successful program, Missouri having such a good start this year. What is it about this Missouri team? What the culture's family? What would you say about the culture of this Missouri team?
So, and I think about this a lot because I feel like our team, we have a lot of upperclassmen returned, but they have faced so much adversity over their time here at Missouri, even before we got here. So their coach got fired mid-year, then they had a new coach, then we come in, then we have the sanctions, and then we get banned from postseason and then COVID. So all this adversity that they have faced, I think has prepared them and kind of made them have this strong bond. I mean, they're out there, they're going to fight. I mean, this weekend, obviously we went 1-2, but we did not bow down and just fall over. We fought every step of the way. And that's what's so special about them is no matter what you throw at them, they are going to compete. They're going to fight. They're not going to give up. And I think that's what's going to make us succeed in the long run.
And what I watch in Missouri, one of the things I notice is you guys are really deep. I mean, you're bringing kids off the bench. They're coming in, hitting pinch hit home runs. What can you say about the depth of this team and how that'll help you going along in the season?
Well, we obviously have 2 freshmen in the lineup that are flat out just athletes that are going to produce. And then, like you said, the depth is just, they're athletes, they're strong, they're committed. And I think if you buy into what we're trying to do and you're going to own your role, then we're going to succeed. And I just think there's so much we can do. And there's even kids where like, we need to get her more at bats, but then we're so strong in the lineup. It's like, it's pretty awesome to have that depth because, the future of the program is in their hands. And I think they know that.
Catching is so underrated, in my opinion. I think you have one of the best catchers in the SEC. Talk about your backstop and what it's like to see her kind of do her work under the radar.
Hattie is, she's probably one of my favorite people because she's so honest and she tells you how it is. And she has a great relationship with coach and she's going to be like, hey, our pitchers are doing this. They need to be better with this. And she's going to communicate with the pitchers. And I think that's what makes her so good. Obviously her skills speak for herself, but what she does behind the plate that are like the intangibles of the communication and, hey, I called this pitch 1 ball off because I saw that she was off the plate and stuff that we can't see on the sidelines, she's picking up and being able to communicate that. So I just think her honesty and her competitiveness are what make her so awesome behind the plate.
And I have to imagine she's probably one of those people that is okay with doing the things that don't get noticed by the stats or don't get noticed by the media because that's the kind of her personality, right?
Absolutely. And she just wants to win. I mean, you can see it in her face. We lose the ball game. She is not happy. So she loves to win.
Not to mention what she brings to the lineup. I mean, what's it like having a catcher that does all that, focuses and all that, but then can also have such a good approach to the plate?
I mean, every time she steps into the batter's box, I just am like, she's going to go off here. Like you just get that feeling from her because of her confidence and just her presence in the batter's box. And I mean, obviously I feel that way about majority of our lineup or all of our lineup really. But she's just so consistent. And even if she's struggling a little bit, she finds a way.
I always feel like Missouri's the underdog in the SEC. They're a new addition. Do you guys kind of feed into that underdog mentality every time you go into an SEC, series?
I think we play with a little bit of a chip on our shoulder. Absolutely. I mean, our first year here in 2019, I mean, we weren't expected to do anything. And I think that steamrolled into what we're doing now is, yeah, we might be an underdog, but we're not an underdog, if that makes sense. Because we know we're one of the better teams in the conference. And we're going to just prove everybody that we are. I mean, they're going to continue maybe to put us in the bottom half, but we're going to prove that we deserve to be in that top half.
What kind of things do you take from your playing career and then, put them into your coaching career, and you can kind of evaluate people from what you experience as a player?
Well, I think, especially being an assistant coach, I think being an assistant coach versus a head coach, obviously you have different roles. And I remember playing with assistant coaches that I had a really strong connection with. So I really tried to understand the players and who they are. And, sometimes coach can play the good, bad cop. I can play the good cop and pick them up a little bit. So it's all kind of who your personnel is. And obviously as a player, you have experiences, and this is what I experienced. I just think the game has evolved a lot too. And I think now as I've grown, I've understood that it's more about treating these girls with respect and understanding who they are to make them better. And obviously now being a parent, you see it from a different aspect as well. But I just think what I learned from my coaches as a player, has taught me how to coach better. Yeah, you can talk about skills and all these things, but I just think the more getting to know them and understanding them and how they tick and how can you communicate with them is what makes the connection that much better.
What's it like? I mean, you said it, you're the kind of the coach that people can come to if they're having a problem or whatever it may be. What's that like for you, being the connection and being the person that people can come to?
It's tough at times because there's a fine line, if does coach need to know this, does she not? But I also think, I can relate to them on many levels. And I kind of like having that role because that's just how I am as a person. I want to help and I want to, do what I can for them. So I enjoy it, but I also, sometimes it is a lot, like where you're like, oh boy, or they just, vent their frustrations or whatever it may be. But, I think it's a great role and I embrace it totally.
Talk about the Missouri community and the athletics community there and how they've embraced you guys. Not a brand new coaching staff, but still a pretty new coaching staff getting there in 2019, and how easy it was to make that transition into Missouri and what the culture is like there.
Well, I think it's interesting coming from a school in Long Island where the sports teams, it's like, you have the New York Jets and you have the Giants and all these pro teams. And in Columbia right here, it's Mizzou is the sports team. So for us, it was very eye-opening to see how important we were. And it was awesome. And they welcomed us with open arms. It was like, we're all about Missouri softball. What can we do to help you? And they embraced us. They embraced our families. And I think the community is, we wouldn't be who we are without this community.
And you get to play in front of an awesome atmosphere. What can you say about the growth of softball and what it's been like to kind of see it firsthand, especially at the level that Missouri plays at, and the atmosphere that Missouri gets to play at week in and week out?
I remember being like 12 years old and it being like the super regionals was the first thing ever on TV. And I would sit there in front of the TV and just watch. And now for it to be on every single weekend, on streaming everywhere, and teams, even mid-majors, all of those teams being able to be on TV in some respect, I can't believe it. Like, my family obviously is back east and they sit there and watch every game and they're there with me, even though they can't be. And as a player, when I was in college, like if my family wasn't at the game, they couldn't see me play. So I think it's unbelievable for these athletes and the families and everybody just be able to see it. And for those little girls that are watching and they can be like, I want to be like Hattie Moore, or I want to be like Kim Moore. I just think it's unbelievable.
From a coaching perspective, how does that help you? You don't have to go and search down game film anymore. You can just go on ESPN Plus and watch a game whenever you want. How does that help you guys from a coaching perspective?
Well, I think it saves us time, one, but so we can spend more time with our athletes, but being able to have that film and the stats, and there's so much information out there now. It just prepares us. I work with the defensive shifts and stuff like that. So being able to watch a kid swing on these games and then move the defense accordingly, obviously it's going to help. And I think for the hitter's perspective, they can watch that pitcher over and over without actually seeing a pitch thrown to them yet.
The SEC is a grind. Every softball fan knows that. What has your SEC experience been like, going through it and dealing with these teams every year and every weekend, every whack out?
Every weekend is like a super regional. It's the intensity, the atmosphere, all of it. But so in the end, it's like, it's just preparing you for when you get to postseason. I love it. I think making competitive games, obviously that game on Sunday, my heart rate was through the roof, but I just find it more exciting. Like, yeah, it's great to win games 10-0, 15-0, but when you have that competition and you see that fire in your team's eyes, like that, there's nothing better than that.
Obviously, you haven't been there too long, but so far, what's been your favorite SEC road trip?
Ooh, it would probably be Kentucky in 2019. We had I think all three were comeback wins, and it was a lot of fun.
Now, we can't let you go without talking about our friend of the blog and the girl from up here in Ohio, Riley Frizzell. And what have you seen from her as a freshman, and what has she brought to the team? Already a couple home runs off the bench. Talk about her and what she's brought to this program.
I mean, Riley is just a force to be reckoned with. I mean, obviously her numbers, she's going to produce, but she's also just such a hard worker. She's a great listener. Like, she'll say, hey coach, what can I do better? And she's just open to learn and to get better. And obviously right now she's not in the starting lineup, but I can see that eventually happening throughout the year. Or, I mean, she's going to make an impact on the program in the long run, 100%.
What can you say about freshmen that are able to come right into a program and change that mindset? Because, in high school, you're the big fish in a small pond. All of a sudden you go into the SEC, you're not that big of a fish anymore, and you got to really work to find your place. What can you say about any freshman's mentality to kind of switch that, and what you've seen so far at Missouri from the freshmen that you've been able to coach?
I think it comes from the leadership. I mean, if you have leaders or upperclassmen that are not letting the freshmen, kind of beating the freshmen down a little bit, they're not going to succeed. When you have upperclassmen like we have, like you look at Kendall Bailey with Jenna Laird. I mean, Kendall makes Jenna better and Jenna makes Kendall better. So I think when you have that leadership in the upperclassmen that are going to lead the freshmen, that's what makes it better. I mean, you obviously are going to have your coaching staff saying, hey, you're going to have an impact, you're going to have an impact. But when you hear it from your teammates, it makes all the difference. And our upperclassmen do a great job of taking them under their wing, and they're not threatened. They want to make them better because they know it makes our program better.
Obviously, the pandemic has drastically changed recruiting. What advice would you give right now for a high school player that's trying to navigate the recruiting process in these hectic times and trying to get seen? What advice would you give to them?
I think it's being different, being proactive, and using your resources. I'm with our day and age, you have Twitter, you have all these video capabilities. And if you are just hounding us or, tagging us on Twitter over and over, we're going to see it. So obviously we're not out there seeing you in person. There's things we love to see in person, but let us get to know you on a virtual level. So whether that be you make a video or you're just posting every day, just little clips of you playing and what your strengths are, and keep working. I mean, that's how we're going to see you. Stand out, make a difference.
Over the summer, how did you kind of find those things that you would look for if you were in person that you can't see just with social media? What kind of creative ways did you guys come up with to try to find a little bit of the things that you're looking for?
I mean, it was difficult. I mean, especially, you have a camera behind home plate. It's not like ESPN, but it's just seeing how kids respond. You have a pitcher throw, she gives up a hit. What's her body language like? Or a kid, strikes out. What's her body language? So all those little things, I mean, obviously not as easy to see as in person, but you can still pick up that stuff. You can still get those vibes, and, communicating with coaches and just what they do on Twitter, what they do on social media. I think that speaks volumes about someone as well.
And if someone's watching this and their dream is to play for Missouri, give an insight on what you guys are looking for and what catches your guys' eye as a coaching staff when you're out there recruiting.
Be coachable. I think that's the biggest thing, and be willing to change. I think sometimes it's hard when you come into a program and you're so stubborn in a sense, but if you want to fit into a program, you have to mold yourself. Like I said, be coachable, be flexible, be willing to sacrifice things that not a normal student would be willing to sacrifice, and be a good teammate. I think that's one of the biggest things that I've seen is if you're a good teammate, you're going to be successful. Having a large roster, which most of these schools have, you're not always going to play. Know your role and be willing to mold to that role.
And I think you brought up a great point, the sacrifice. A lot of these players don't really understand what the players at your level have had to give up to kind of get to that level. Talk about what that means and what it's like to see players kind of finally get rewarded for all the sacrifices they've made to get to this level.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, it's a grind. So the amount of hours they spend just working out physically, not even on the softball field, especially coming back from COVID. That was a big thing. And then steamrolling into practice hours. And, we're limited to 20 hours a week during traditional season, but our girls are on their own, hitting, pitching, whatever they need to do to get themselves better. And then on top of it, their schoolwork. So they are sacrificing some of the social aspect and some of the personal stuff, but like you said, you get to experience this one time. And are you going to make it the best 4 years of your life, or is it going to be, a drag the entire 4? So it's kind of what you put into it. And I think our girls have done a tremendous job of putting their efforts into winning and getting themselves better. And I think it's shown on the ball field.
Obviously, goals Oklahoma City. Before we let you go, what are some things that Missouri should do that we should watch out for if they want to get to Oklahoma City?
Well, I think we got to finish in the top half of the SEC for sure. Right now, looking at our RPI, if we can get into the top 16 and host a regional, I think that would put us in a really good spot. So, winning these SEC series is going to be a big thing for us. We had a tough series with Georgia, but I think we can grow from it. And again, our pitching staff, technically they're all freshmen. That was our first away SEC series for any of our pitchers. So it was a big experience for them. And I think they're just going to grow and get better.
Coach, thank you so much for joining us this week. Good luck the rest of the season. We're going to be watching pretty closely. We'll be keeping an eye on Riley and Mizzou and what they're doing. And good luck the rest of the year.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.